Yo, it's me, Cyber here, or someone like just to give quick context to the debate, real quick. This was because the recording bot actually failed to actually capture the recording which was happening, and via that, I have to explain what was the first points made. The points I made within the video were just adhering towards the original recording, which got scrapped. So we were debating on anti-realism, or he was an error theorist, and basically, I was going for more realism. So we got into what the definition was and how we should represent it. And I said that within the metaphysical thesis, that's how we apply it. And that's the context and the most consistent definition for the dialectic in which we apply, because of the negation and the premise conceived by the propositions in which we take a dosastic attitude upon. I've explained that within this current recording, and but he also used an analogy which was like, if we see an apple, right? No, because he said because that would just correspond to reality, and that's how we make a truth maker for the us. And no, that's a conveyance within a synthetic truth. Synthetic truth is not the same as a morally objective truth. We cannot observe morally objective things because they don't actually have any presence. They're laws which we follow. Same way, for an example, something like time. Does time has a physical form? We move within time, but time does not have a physical form. No, that'd just be a non sequitur. His analogy isn't analogous because like this and that. But I just made the conceptual distinction of moral truths and does that the synthetic truth. It's in within the recording as well, but that was just my main refutation and explaining this. And I asked for his argument. He said he didn't have none. So yeah, here we are.
Da, 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 da. Let my head pop down, you can never from the Canada. That's that cocaine, and it's a little bit of luck job. You'll be la la la. Welcome back.
Yeah.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Oh, so my bad. I was just playing the elevator music to keep the recording bot in here. Also, the other recording bot left because some dumbass like fucking used a command to stop it. Probably a troll, but yeah, I guess we're doing another recording. But yeah, generally when it's applied within the context due to our stances, our dichotomous stances, error theory, and moral realism, the metaphysical thesis just suggests that moralism itself can't exist objectively. Like your analogy that when we make a truth maker for when we see an apple, it'd be a synthetic truth, right? Yeah, that isn't exactly the same truth in which you're referring to. Moral truths in the context of moral realism are just actual principles, set of laws which actually exist within a metaphysical thesis, conceiving a framework of that. So it just has some form of ontological status. And when we in the context for like synthetic truths, those are just truths observable. I don't think moral laws would be observable unless they're written down or just like practiced within like actual like I'd say like a good argument for moral realism being observable would just be like fucking observing things which are constantly there or just constantly there or just conceivably like making an argument through inductive reasoning. But the analogy itself just expresses like a fucking truth maker for synthetic truths, not necessarily moral truths. So in the context in which we apply error theory, we would have to gain the stance that basically because it's negating moralism in that sense, because it's like saying all moral propositions in that sense can have truth, but moral realism argues that they are truth, right? So obviously there's a bit of like a skeptic framework around that via your own definition, which I kind of believe is just kind of like not really what error theory is defined as, because error theory generally just has the same conception as like anti-realism in itself. Like error theory just posits that basically it's just there isn't necessarily like moral truth values or moral propositions in that sense. Like they objectively exist. So it's negating that. But also here's like a another reductive towards the analogy, I guess. When you mention the analogy in itself, it's like the practically like the Apple thing. Yeah, sure, you can believe within something, right? A proposition, right? But in that same sense, that would just be like saying that a dosastic, like not dosastic, but like a dosastic attitude contains like these specific operations which allow for the epistemic deterministic things, right? So basically epistemically open of a proposition, and we would need that specific proposition for a set of beliefs to be like, in that sense, it's just a dosastic necessity for that. So it's like an example of like a true thing, right? You can use this for dosastic truths, etc., etc. They're distinct types of truths. So when you apply error theory in this context of the dialectic, you'd be having to apply it towards moral realism, in which it denies the existence of moral facts or just moral truths in general, which exist objectively, because one's affirming it, one's by your definition is just affirming it can be the case rather than actually like, affirming or going on the negation through LEM, possibly. LEM would just be the quantifier for that. But in that context, you would just need to apply it towards the moral realism stance, because obviously it's the opposite stance. Conceptual distinctions between the type of truths which you're trying to analogize it for. The analogy in itself, I don't think would be analogous via this context. Like, and again, so the definition and the applicability would be towards the putting into question of the more realistic stance. So I would necessarily say it's like, can for propositions, but because, denies the outright affirmation, it would just be going against that. So it's implied or just an indicator of negation too. So put into question and negation properties type thing.
I don't have anything to add.
Yeah, that's like a response to what you said. So any like refutation?
No, I don't have anything to add.
All right, then we can get to the debate about moralism versus error theory. What's your argument for error theory being the case?
No, I'm saying I don't have anything to add.
Oh, so like that's just it, like for the debate?
Yeah.
Shit. Damn.
Anyways,